Here at the Giver Marketing Network, we don't leave you drifting out in space. We connect you to a coach who will help you build and grow your marketing business. Our process acts as a guide on how to connect with other businesses, maintain good relations, and establish a presence on the Giver Marketing Network. Each member within this collaborative group will have the opportunity to leverage your talent and influence, a true network effect. If you are looking to collaborate on more projects, welcome to the Giver Marketing Network, the most trusted and highest rated collective of specialists on the planet. Here we have a group of like-minded professionals who focus on making valuable introductions and helping each other grow by teaming up. Imagine Upwork meets a network and a coach. The talent collectively includes services like visibility and SEO, creating logos, designing websites, managing social media, outreach messaging, visual storytelling, and much more. Think of what you could do with laser-focused allies, strengthening your business while offering your talents to the entire network. Click near this video for more information.
Hello, and we are so excited. Hello, this is the Giver Marketing Network, and this is our Tuesday Marketing Masterclass. So if you wanted to learn a little bit more about marketing, you are in the right place today. I'm Deane, Team Director at Giver Marketing, and we have our speaker today, which is Nate. Nate, I'm going to butcher your last name. Help me.
Saucier.
Saucier. That sounds French. French?
Yes.
At least I got that part right. I love it. Welcome, Nate. And Nate, your superpower is really, if I remember right, I think it's that website stuff, but it's more than that, right? Tell us a little bit more about your origin story. How'd you get involved in what you're doing? What are you up to?
Well, how I got started was 20 years ago, I had retired early from being a speech therapist, and I had a lot of time on my hands. So I started dabbling in websites, just having fun with it, making some for myself. And then I started working for a nonprofit, a spiritual community, and worked on their website and their social media. And I realized a lot of people need this type of help. There's a lot of entrepreneurs out there trying to do it all themselves, and it gets frustrating for them. So I decided to go into business to help them out.
I understand how that goes. That's kind of how I started my business. It's like, yeah, if you don't find one you like, why not create your own, right? I love it. So I'm thinking that your specialty, you said you started off with that kind of healing space, right? Is that where you continue to work? And
Yes, with healers, spiritual coaches, therapists.
So you like working with those that are doing good in the world. I see a theme here. I could just see exactly why we like having you here as part of the Giver Marketing Network. It's a good fit for us too, because that's what we like to do. So today's tips and tricks, I believe, aren't going to be just for the healers, though. This is going to be website tips for everybody, isn't it?
Correct.
Oh, yay. We love that. So even if you're not a healer, we're glad you're here, because this is the right place to be if you want to learn a bit about your website. Now, if I remember right, we were talking about how websites, people come, people go, right? Sometimes they stay for a while, sometimes they don't. So I think you were going to give us some tips and tricks on how to get them to hang out for a while at your website.
Exactly.
Oh, thank goodness, because, you spend a lot of time and effort creating it. You might invest a lot of money into it. And if people aren't hanging out and getting the information you want, then why do you even have it, right? So maybe you can help us keep people on our website longer. I think that's a great goal. I'm going to chat out and say hi to some of our followers. We've got our Giver Marketing Network. I can see them in the house. Woo, woo. And then we've got some, Kingdom Warriors in there. Thank you for joining us today. And Nate, I want to hear more about what you have to say. So what do you think? Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, I'm going to pull it up and let's do it.
Okay, everyone, we're here to reduce your website visitor bounce rate. I already told about myself, started 20 years ago building websites. And so we did that already. So what is user experience? This is what we're talking about today. What keeps them on your website is called the UX, or the user experience. So the answer, UX, is user experience. Why does that matter? Well, it affects whether someone will stay on your site or bounce. So what's a bounce rate? That's what we're talking about today. The percentage of visitors that come to a website and then leave before viewing another page. This means they didn't click on your links there to go to another page. They didn't sign up for something. They didn't buy. They just left. We want to avoid that. So what are some things I see that on websites that people leave? Why do you think the number one reason, or the first reason anyway, visitors leave a website? Any ideas?
I'm going to think, I know for me, I don't know about everybody else, but for me, when I get to a website and it's still loading, still loading, still loading, that's one of my favorite reasons. It's like, yeah, maybe it's broken. I got to go.
Exactly. So slow page speed. So how slow is slow, right? When you have your website and you test it out, how slow is slow? 3 seconds or more. Doesn't sound like long, but people will decide to leave. They don't want to wait because they can go to another website that loads quickly.
And you think about 3 seconds, it's only 3 seconds, right? But we are impatient. I don't know about you, but I got things to do, right? And so that's how people are. We want instant gratification. We go someplace, we expect it to open immediately so we can get the information we want. 3 seconds is like eternity, right?
Yes, it is. Actually, it is. If your page loads faster, even the better. So how do you know if your page loads quickly? Well, you can go to pagespeed.web.dev and or just Google page speed, and you can find a tool to measure your page speed. And it will tell you all kinds of things about uploading your upload speed. And
will it tell you why your page isn't loading fast?
Not really.
You got to figure that out. Okay.
Well, we can talk about that. How can I speed up my website? That's what you want to know, really, right? Mm-hmm. So you've measured it. It came out too slow. You can actually add, if you have on WordPress anyway, if you're on WordPress, you can add the plugin WP Rocket. WP Rocket, and that is something that will speed up your website because what uploads are photos and your cache. And your cache is like big, and you want to shrink it while it's uploading. And that's what it will do. Okay, the next thing I see on websites that increases the bounce rate is not being mobile friendly. How many times have you gone on a website on your phone and you just can't use it? I mean, come on. They didn't adapt it to mobile, so the buttons are too small. You can't read the text, or things like that. So
yeah, I hate also when you have to like scroll to the side to see something and scroll back the other way because you can't even read the whole sentence because it's really not mobile optimized. Yep, that'll drive you nuts.
Absolutely. And does this really matter? I mean, do that many people use their mobile device? Actually, yeah. 55% use their mobile device to do an internet search. So that's more than half. So you don't want to miss out on those people. So what should we do to make the website mobile friendly? Headings. They need to be the right size. They need to adapt in size. They can't just be a duplicate of the desktop because then they'll be too small. They'll be running off the side of the page. They need to adapt to being the right size and readable. Text, the same thing. Christine was mentioning you have to scroll sometimes to see all the text, and then it's like, yeah, but why bother, right? Why not just leave? And that's what will happen. Images. Sometimes images are falling off the side as well. And sometimes they overlap the text, so you can't read the text. So images have to be the right size too. And buttons. I mentioned buttons. That's like my pet peeve is when the buttons are so tiny, you have to enlarge it to just, you see it all, you read it, and then you enlarge it so you can click on the button. And people just don't want to do that. So, mistake number 3, is your appearance attractive? Okay. If it's not attractive, people aren't going to want to stay. If the colors, are garish, or we'll get into that. So, first reason for appearance, does your site look professional? Does it have a lot of white space on it? Is it clean looking, or is it too busy? It's better to be clean looking and look professional. The font is readable, all of that. Images, only high quality images. I have seen websites where the images were blurry, and it's easily avoided. You just have a high quality picture, and then you upload it on your site. I mean, it just
that's one of our pet peeves here too. It's like, nope, that's not high enough quality. Nope.
Yeah. So you work with high quality photos, images. Colors, as I mentioned, the colors could be garish, but if they go together well, really, if they match the brand, they're fine. They're good, and people will enjoy those. So have a great appearance on your website. All right. By the way, my office manager, Jackie, is here with us today. He took a break from his paper shredding.
I've got one of those too. They shred things. Mine just happens to be a dog.
Yes, your dog does it too.
Oh, yes. Very good shredders.
Uh-huh. Okay, is your site easy to navigate?
That's a big one right there, right? If somebody comes to your website and they can't find what they're looking for, what do you think that's going to do to your bounce rate? They're out of there.
And it's amazing what things will get them to not be able to navigate. We think it looks great. We think it's easy to use. But when they get to it, they're not using it easily because something wasn't intuitive. We know what we're talking about. We did a great job. We got all the great information on the site, but are people able to figure it out, how to manage it? So menu, this is a big thing. On your menu, I have seen as much as 20 choices of tabs on the menu. Yeah, and people don't choose one. They get overwhelmed and leave. It's like, that's too many to look through. They don't even want to read them all. Not even reading all the tabs.
Yeah, that's a lot. I mean, can you imagine it's trying to sift your way through that to find what you're looking for? Another one I've seen on the menu choices where they'll put a choice, but it's not something that's intuitive, like you said. It's on a topic that we're thinking of. It's like if you want to use fancy words and I don't like this word, so I'm going to use this instead. Well, if people don't know what word to look for because you're not using the common vernacular for what it is, it doesn't do us any good if you start making up your own words. We can't find it.
Yeah. People want to use clever words, but they're not always logical words. Or they just use very, very simple words like about. Now, about could be about anything. And I've seen a lot of websites just say about on their, for one of their menu tabs. And yeah, I want to learn more about this company, but what exactly am I going to learn if I click on that tab? About Nate, about Christine, about Attraction Unlimited Marketing, my business. It helps us say what it's about. Or about me even is better than just about. Now here's a suggestion I have that not everybody does this, but the menu. When you scroll and the menu goes away, then you have to scroll all the way back to get to the menu to choose something else you want to see. Now we want them to see other pages, right? Not just the home page. And we want them to be able to navigate. So if your menu is what we call sticky, it will stay present no matter where you scroll, no matter how far down you scroll, it stays at the top of your screen so that you can always see it. You can always go to another page or go back to a page. Maybe you want to go back to the home page. All of that, the sticky menu helps. Speaking of scrolling, when you get to the bottom of the page, how fun is it to scroll all the way back to the top?
We're lazy. We've admitted it already, Nate. It's true. We're lazy. We don't want it to scroll. That's like 3 seconds. And we all know the 3-second rule is already done, right?
Absolutely. Well, there's a way to avoid that too. You can make a button at the bottom of toward the bottom of the page that has an arrow on it that you just click on it and it scrolls quickly up to the top. It goes fast, faster than you could scroll. So it saves you a lot of time, a lot of seconds. Okay, one more thing, and we'll talk. It's not ADA compliant. Why would that matter? Well, the reason it matters is actually the reason bounce rate matters. Besides people leaving, it also affects your SEO, your search engine optimization, which helps you rank better on internet searches. So you want to rank well on internet searches, right? So people can find you. So people leaving, the bounce rate, if it's high, will affect people, your SEO. It'll affect your Google ranking or your search engine ranking, right? So people leave, sometimes they leave because they can't use your website. They just can't because they have a disability, or maybe they just have low vision. I mean, maybe they're my age and can't see as well as we used to see, right?
It's like trying to read the prescription bottles, right? What does that say? You got to take a picture of it and zoom in on it so you can read it. Sometimes that's the way it feels like on some of the websites, and the text is so small. I hear you. Now, when you say ADA compliant, what does the ADA compliant stand for? What does that mean?
The ADA was Americans with Disability Act, and it was started in 1990. It means that all public services have to be accessible to the disabled. So when you come to a building and you see a ramp there, you know why the ramp's there, right? So that people in wheelchairs can get into that building. So then it's accessible to them. So that means the building is ADA compliant. That's one of the ways the building is ADA compliant. But how about websites? What would that be? Well, here gives you this is just a version of what the problem is. Usually we have on the left, and how many people can really see that soccer game? Really one. On the right, all three people can see it really easily, and they're happy and they're having fun. We want people to have fun on the website, right? We want them to be able to see everything, to be able to use it.
And you know what, Nate, that brings up a great point before you move on that one. It's the difference between equal versus equitable. There's a difference between there. And a lot of people don't think, well, isn't everything equal? And really, equal doesn't necessarily do a lot of good. Equal doesn't mean everybody has equal access like you think it would mean, right? Equitable means making the adjustments so that everybody has the same kind of access.
Absolutely, Christine. So everybody can enjoy your site. It's being all inclusive, really, is what it is. It's more than being ADA compliant, which is important too, because it is a law. It's being all inclusive, not leaving anybody out. And so you want people to stay on your site. You don't want them to leave because they have a disability.
And so I don't think all designers necessarily have the ADA compliance in mind when they're designing their websites. And some of the do-it-yourself, you don't have any experience with that at all. You probably don't even think about it. So I look forward to hearing the different 6 steps you've got here, our challenges.
Yes. Well, first of all, motion or bright colors. You wouldn't think that would be a problem. But if you have epilepsy, sometimes motion and bright colors can trigger an episode. So people with epilepsy need it to be safe. So they need to be able to turn off that motion or not have the motion on there, and the colors not to be quite so bright. So that's one adaptation. Another one that's kind of different, that's definitely different than that one, is contrast. So you want to have the font, the text that contrasts with the background, and the background not too busy. This is helpful for everybody, no matter whether they have a disability or not. The font large enough and being contrasted with the background. So, a white background with black font, that's beautiful. But if you have a busy background and you put font on it, it's hard to read and people just don't read it.
So what do you think about the white text on the black background?
That's okay to an extent. I wouldn't use it a lot because black can be kind of a heavy color to have a lot of it. But yes, you can definitely do that. A dark color with the white works just as well. So another thing are distractions. So too many things happening on the website. You think you want a lot of movement, you want a lot of excitement. Yes, you do. But if too many things are happening, people are like, where should I look? This is a party here. I'm in a party and I'm not knowing who to talk with. So it's too much. So distractions can be
That
a
makes
lot.
sense, right? Because you want them to draw their attention on what's important. And if everything's moving, how do you know what's important, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you want people to find their way to the important stuff. And you say it's all important. Well, you have to prioritize. As we were talking about before, being able to read it. So the font itself, the style of the letters in the text, right? There are fonts that are just not readable.
You hit, there's one of mine right there. There's my pet peeve, Nate. I'm going to tell you, those fonts that are so thin that you can't hardly read them because they're just so thin. Those drive me nuts. Or the ones that are just so funky. You're like, what does that even say? Yeah, especially what's in a logo. And I want to know the name of your company. I can't read it.
And if you use it, oftentimes it's a script, so it's in cursive. Do you know that some people don't read cursive? They were never taught.
Yeah, my youngest is like that. Yep.
Yeah. So, if they can't read it, it's not helping them. So if you're going to put a somewhat fancy script in your logo, at least put your name of your business right below it so they can read that part in nice, clear font, easy to read. So at least do that. Yeah. So legible font. Now, alt tags, what are those? Well, when we design a website, we put up a photo in there, and there needs to be a description. So when you put the photo in, the program, your CMS, your content management system, which is how you build your website, allows you to put an alt tag on that, which means it is a description of what the image is. So why does that matter? Well, for people who are blind, using a screen reader, it just reads. So it goes across reading, and really it reads the code, but that's another story. So anyway, it reads, and if it gets to a picture and there's no alt tag, it can't tell the person what's in that picture. And if a person's blind, they cannot see it. So this is really important to have alt tags for all your photos. And speaking of screen readers, sometimes they get stuck. So that's a coding thing, which if you can get someone who can code, they can fix that so that the screen reader can go all the way through the code. Or there's also a software that just does all of these for you. It makes it simple. And that's one of the things I do is help put software on the website, basically a plugin. So let's summarize what we've been talking about. How do you get people to stay on your site? Page speed. So you want it to be 3 seconds or less, right? And you can measure it. Mobile friendly. So you want it to adapt to mobile so that on mobile it looks just as pretty and easy to use as it does on a desktop. Attractive. Well, yes, it has to be attractive. People are not going to stay on an unattractive site, including if your images are blurry, or your colors don't go together, things like that. Navigation, we talked about that too, how if you get to the site and it's not clear how to navigate, there's too many menu choices, or the menu titles don't make any sense to them. It may have made sense to us when we created the website, but it doesn't make sense to the visitor. Sometimes it's good to ask a friend to read your website to find that out. Is it easy to navigate? And accessibility. So in other words, including everybody, and including people like me who have, want to see font a little bit bigger, want to be able to read it, have it be really clear to read. That is being accessible. So do we have any questions yet?
Oh, I'm sure we'll have some. We've got our team in the background here in the studio that's going to be ready to pop in here soon. So I'm sure they've got some questions for us when it comes to websites. Oh, but this is important. We need to talk about this. So
Yeah,
your free
let's talk about
PDF,
this.
tell us a little bit about your gift today.
Well, you're wondering, how do I see a list of all these things? How do I go back to my website and remember everything you said, Nate? Well, I have a free PDF and it talks about 10 tips rather than just 5. It goes into more detail and it talks about 10, and it also has a checklist with it. So it's really handy, so you can go through that list and make sure your website is meeting all of those tips, is meeting all of those suggestions. So if you go to tinyurl.com AUM free checklist, then you can get that optimization checklist. Make sure your website is ready and keeping visitors on it.
All right, we're going to drop that in the comments also so that anybody can go click on that and get access to that. Because a lot of times we'll attend a webinar or something. We're like, wow, that was good. Oh, I want to remember that. And we can't remember it, right? By the time of the show, it's like, there was something else I wanted, right? And we can't remember that. So it's nice to have a checkoff list afterwards so you can go back through and hit those ideas. And you've even got bonus stuff on there for us. So that's fantastic. I love it. Well, so with your website, you've been doing this for 20 years. That's a long time to be doing websites. I love it.
Yes. Well, back in the day, they weren't the same as they are now. They were a lot simplified. They were static. You just read it, might have had some pictures or illustrations, but they didn't move, they didn't interact with the people. And websites, you can tell if a website's from 20 years ago.
You really can. And when you see a website and it's 20 years old, you're like, is that company still in business? Right?
Yes.
You start wondering, okay, copyright 1990. Are they even open? Right. And so you really want your website to be current. You want it to look like it's still with a company that's open.
Yes. So
Absolutely.
you update it every year, put new stuff on it every few months. In fact, that helps your search engine optimization. That helps you get more people to your site.
Absolutely. And so when we think about people coming to your site, you want them to stay, you want them to get the information they want. And do you have any other little tricks on here that you didn't share with us already? I bet you do.
Well, thinking about the copyright, you can update that copyright on your site to say, copyright 2023. So it looks like it's, the most current version, and hopefully it is the most current version, but you can update that copyright.
And you're actually supposed to update it, not just the copyright part, right?
Yeah. You can cheat. I'll let you cheat. That'll be all right. But yeah, it's better if you update it.
I love that. Well, let's see if any of our team members want to pop in. They might be popping in one at a time. Let's see who we've got here. Hey, Oz.
Howdy.
Howdy. Now, Oz has websites. His is more e-commerce style, right? You've got, because you're selling things, right? Oh, I see Joel's here too. Let's add Joel to the stream. Hello, welcome. So you guys have some questions for him? You want to pick his brain? Now is the time to do it, right?
I do. So Nate, so I'm an artist, okay, and we're building a website right now called No More Starving Artists, in cooperation with Giver Marketing. And my biggest concern is load time, because we're going to be having hundreds and hundreds of images working with 30 or 40 or even 50 other artists that are going to have between 8 and 12 pieces of art on our site. And I'm concerned about load time, having all of those images and a video, probably a 30-second to 1-minute video of each artist explaining why they do what they do. We really want it to be inclusive and fun and awesome, and load times with videos and photos. What sizes should they be? Should they be hosted on the site, off the site? How can we keep that loading quick and still being really representative of all the artists?
Super. Excellent question, Joel. And that is beautiful explanation of what the challenge is. Absolutely. So yeah, if you have a lot of video and images, especially if they're big, they can really slow your page down. So what you do is, yes, you can start out with images that are smaller, like 1,000 pixels wide, for example, and you can have your videos off-site. So you can have them on YouTube or Vimeo, and then you can get them. You could actually do that and have them play and stay on your website to see them. So there's a way to do that where you have them on YouTube. That's where they're housed, but they show on your website. So that when your page is loading, it's not loading that big video, the whole video, just loading the thumbnail.
Well, and it probably need to be careful of on YouTube, when you store those on YouTube, what's the next video that shows afterwards, right? Because a lot of times YouTube will do an autoplay. So you probably want to put those into a list or something. This way it stays with your stuff instead of someone else's stuff too. So,
Right.
but you're right, because the load time on that, right? Videos can take up a lot of space.
Mm-hmm. They're great though. People love videos. So that's wonderful that you're going to put videos on there, especially of the artists. That's super.
So Nate, so to review, we're going to be hosting the videos on YouTube or another site, yet they will play on our website. Nobody's going to have to bounce back and forth. And like what Christine just said, we'll be creating a list, I guess, in our YouTube channel, so that if it does go to another next video, it will be one of those, not like, the Mets against the Yankees or what Donald Trump did today. Okay. Because I don't want that on my website. Because every site seems to be that way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So there's a way to do that. Yes?
Yeah. So you create a playlist of your videos on YouTube. It's pretty simple to do, actually. And then it'll just continue on that playlist. That way your videos will be showing and not somebody else's that are completely unrelated.
Sweet.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nate, for explaining that. Do we have some more comments and questions for him, Joel?
Sure. So, Nate, it's interesting. The ADA compliance issue has been going now for a while, and we've actually had clients get sued for not being ADA compliant in their stores. And so it's now extended to the website. And I understand that there's lawsuits that you can endure there. So when you're doing ADA compliance for your clients, do you have specific disclaimers? Do you have, I guess there's all different levels of compliance as well, to avoid lawsuits. Do you have any feedback on that?
Absolutely, Joel. You bring up a really good point. There are lawsuits out there. A lot of them, especially in California, Florida, and New York, but everywhere, really. And your website shows everywhere around the world, right? You want it to, pretty much, right? So it can show up in Japan. Japan has an ADA law too, disability law. Canada, there's a lot of countries that do. So how can you know that you meet the requirements? Well, there was this worldwide guideline, WCAG, is what it's called. And it's a guideline to let you know what you can do with your website so that it meets the ADA requirements. Now, how I do it, there's basically a button that we put on the website. So it stays there on the left. It's not too big. And it has a disability icon on it. So it's very obvious that if you have a disability, you can use it. And when you click on it, it opens up a menu of how you can change the site just for yourself. It doesn't change it for anybody else. Everybody else can see it the original way, but it can change it so that the images have descriptions behind them, even so that the font can be in contrast. You can make it where it's even more contrast, things like that. Oh, another one is dyslexia. I didn't know until recently there's an actual font for dyslexia that makes it possible to be read more easily. Yeah, I was demonstrating this to a fellow, and he was really excited about this ADA, compliance thing that we're adapting websites, and he wanted to see it. So I showed it to him, and then I showed him, and here's the dyslexia font. And he said he was blown away, completely blown away, because he has dyslexia. So he read that so easily. It was impressive. and I didn't even know he had dyslexia, but he was totally excited. So that's how people react to your website when they can use it easily.
What do you think the average cost is for ADA compliance for maintaining that on your website?
Well, if you have me do it, it's pretty inexpensive. There's just when I do it, there's a one-time cost, and because it adapts, it's code that adapts the whole website, no matter what's on there. So the cost is just one time. I charge $470, just one-time fee.
That's a bargain. We've had consultants quote $10,000 to make websites ADA compliant.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, thanks for your question, Joel. That was wonderful.
Joel has nice, thoughtful questions, right? I love it.
Yes, yeah.
Shamika, did you bring any questions to the table for Nate about websites?
Yes, Nate. So 2 questions. How can we use like Google Analytics to help us with some of this, like the bounce rates? Like, how do we know what the bounce rate is? How do we find it? And the second question, I'll come back to the second question. I'll let you answer.
That's a great question, Shamika. Yes, Google Analytics can tell you your bounce rate. And it needs to be ideal if it's 45% or less. If it gets to be like 55, it's really too high. So then you know something is needing to be changed. And how you can find it on Google Analytics, I'd almost need to show you. So maybe another time. But you can work with somebody who knows Google Analytics to show you how, like one-on-one. That would be great.
That's fantastic. Yeah, there's if you're not familiar, that's one of the backdoor side. You can't see it on the front end that you have Google Analytics on it, but on the back side, it's back there working away. It's like the duck's feet swimming underneath the water, right? You can't see it swimming, but it's moving.
Yes.
The other question is, like, I know, quite a few people use WordPress, and they're like all these red buttons popping up, and like what's the best way to clean that stuff up?
Describe that a little bit more for me, please.
A lot of updates happening in the back end of WordPress.
Oh.
And they have like warnings and red kind of like, you need to take care of this now. And there's a lot of them back there.
Okay. All right. Sure. Yeah. Most of them, a lot of them are just updating plugins, for example. And you can click on update and that'll take care of it. A lot of plugins can be automatically updated. That's what I do just to make life easier. The other ones, it just depends on what it is. WordPress needs to be updated. That's another one that comes up a lot. That's pretty simple. But there's other ones like, some of the language that the WordPress is using needs to be updated. And then you want to call your hosting company about that and get them to help you figure that out.
Does that affect the speed? Yes or no?
I'm not sure. That's a really good question.
Anybody else want to hop in on that answer?
It's been my experience that everything affects speed. So if you have optimized absolutely everything, it'll affect overall speed, right? So how your images load, whether it's lazy loading or immediate loading, the size of the images, all of the text language, how much code is in the back end could affect your site speed. So if you're using an old template and it's heavily code related, and there's tons of JavaScript in the back end, that could slow it down. So one of the things that WordPress does is it does have updated themes. And so when you're looking at themes, you might think about AMP pages if you're loading heavily on mobile. So there's lots of different ways to affect it. But having someone like Nate, who's a pro builder, can definitely give you the direction and advice on, on cleaning that up. But that's, my experience is the older the site is and the older the templates are and the more code that's on it, the slower the site speed's going to be.
Well, and you got to be careful when you start doing those updates. Make sure you've got backups, because every once in a while, right, if you haven't updated something in a long time and the plugin, you're like, oh, let me update that. Whoop, it might cause issues. And if you don't update something, then it's not keeping up with the latest version of something else, and then they're not compatible. So you got to pop in there once in a while, make sure you're up to date, and make sure you're backed up just in case the uh-oh happens.
Thanks, Christine. That's an excellent point. I like to back them up every day. That may be overkill, but I don't want to lose any of my work because I'm updating the site a lot. I don't want to lose, it's like when you're on a Word document, do you save it or do you just do the whole document without saving it? You're taking a chance that your computer, does something and there it's gone. So, websites, they need to be backed up pretty often.
Has anybody ever typed anything? You're working on a document and all of a sudden you didn't hit save in time and it disappears and you're like, oh, I have to. Most of us have been there, done that, right? And I can't even imagine having that happen on a website, right? It's like, oh goodness, all those moving parts and everything. I just want to cry. So save is your friend. Backups are your friend. Absolutely. Yeah. Any more questions we have for Nate? Or Nate, you have any last words of wisdom for us?
I got one, Christine. I just want to go back to the ADA compliance. So Nate, you talked about what your fee was, and you talked about when you make the site ADA compliant, it will kind of morph and shift when somebody hits that disability icon button. Are you doing all of that, or is that something separate?
Well, the button will do all of that I put on the site. But so it does it only when the person has to choose it. So there's a menu, they choose it, and then it will adapt the site in that manner just for them.
Perfect. Yeah. So they'll see bigger fonts, more contrast, all of that.
Right. Super. Yeah, because you want everybody to be able to see the contrast that you especially reading art, you want the correct contrast on there. But if somebody has low vision, they need a better contrast to be able to see it.
Cool. And the second question would be desktop versus mobile. Are we basically creating two completely different sites, or is there just some shift that we're adding that will make it a lot easier to be looking? Because I mean, half the sites that I see on mobile, even with glasses on, I'm like, I can't read this. It's frustrating.
Absolutely. Well, as I mentioned, there's a lot of adaptations for mobile that need to be done, and especially the size of the font, the headings, the photos, making sure they don't overlap, making sure they don't go off the page. So that's in the design, right? So in the design, you design it so that it looks good on mobile. When it comes down to ADA compliance, though, how does that work, right? Because it's a little different. But there's also the same button that shows on the desktop will show on the mobile site. And it works the same way. It brings up a menu. They choose it, what they want. And then they can close that little box, and then they see the website how they need it, even on mobile.
Sweet. Thank you.
Great question.
What an awesome tool to be able to add to your website. Thank you for sharing that with us, Nate.
You're very welcome. Thank you for.
Let's go ahead and remind everybody of your giveaway that you've got. Oh, well, hold on. We've got a question. Here we go. Let me pull that up before we get into that. Kobe's wondering, would you ever use an old heavy JavaScript template in combination with the cache plugin? Like what?
Right. I think that's what Joel was talking about. Everything can slow your site down, right? So if you have an old script, yes, it's going to slow it down. I would say it's well worth updating the website.
Absolutely. And if you're wondering about what things you should look for, then we've got his freebie, right? So optimize your website checklist. So check that out, tinyurl.com/AUM free checklist. So if you're wondering what you need to do to update your website, be sure to check that out. Awesome. Thank you so much for speaking today, Nate. We appreciate it. Coming in here and giving us some of your wisdom, especially with the ADI compliance stuff that a lot of people may not be familiar with. Those are good things to keep in mind when we're building our websites. We might need to go in and make some changes because like Joel said, people are getting sued over that. We don't want to do that either, right? But really, we want to make sure everybody can see your website or hear your website if they're listening to it, right?
Mhm.
So that's
Right.
important. Accessibility.
Yes. Thank you, Christine. Thanks for having me on this class.
Absolutely. So we have our masterclass every Tuesday. So you want to be sure to be here and join us. If you're not on our mailing list, you're not getting those notifications about what's coming up. Be sure to drop in comments, put your email in there, or let us know and say, I want to be on your newsletter, right? And we'll send that out to you so that you know and you don't miss another awesome masterclass. Same time, same week, every week on Tuesdays. And then on Wednesdays, we're doing our networking for marketers. So if you're a marketer and you want to come hang out with us, that's a great place to come play. So put that in comments and we'll be sure to invite you to that and come hang out with us. Awesome. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. And we will see you next week for another Marketing Masterclass.
Bye, guys.